This is the beginning of my friend Kelly's portrait that she's commissioned me to do. I'm very excited about it. And so this is the plaster beginnings. It's just troweled on, but this one I really wanted the plastering underneath to kind of reflect what, really kind of be the beginnings of the painting. And its layout. So while I was putting the plaster on, I projected her image up there. Now I'll show you what that looks like. Well, this is kind of weird. The light from the projector isn't enough to show up on the screen, so I'm flashlighting. So anyway, you can kind of see her head, hand, hair, and torso, and how the color differentiation in the plaster is going to complement bringing that to life. Maybe you can tell. Well, when you watch this back after it's all done, then you'll see where it started. I've got Kelly's outline on now and just giving me a better view of where she's going to be placed and kind of figuring out how I'm going to work, because the butterflies are laying over her, but they're going to partially be seen through her, or she's going to be seen through them. So which to start and what to do. So I figure I'd get them on so at least I have a more idea of where they're going to be. And I'm working, what I like to lay things in watercolor pencils. They are water soluble for the most part. They shadow through on my plaster, but they're good to lay in, and they actually give a little bit of their own imagery. You can see that in the lizard. Some of the lines actually show through, and where they get covered in a medium, they become permanent. So they help develop the final product a lot of times if I don't get rid of them entirely. So it's just one more layer of interest in the movement of the whole piece. So I'm working with my little butterflies, which I've chosen to not project up there because I'm morphing them a little bit from their original imagery. So that's where I'm at right now. I've got my butterflies in, and now I'm coming back and bringing the flesh tones kind of in and amongst the butterfly. And there may be a better way of doing this, and others would probably attempt it in a more conventional manner. I am choosing to do this because I am unconventional and winging it most of the time. But what I'm working with is something I've never, well, I can't say I've never done, but never done really in this way. And I'm kind of wanting it to evolve because I see what I want in my head, but it's also kind of going in and out as far as its absolute exactness, because I want to see her, I want the butterflies over her, I want their coloration, but I want them translucent at the same time, and her kind of translucent underneath them, and not quite like as defined as I might do if there were no butterflies involved over her. So I'm kind of pushing and pulling the colors and bringing her color and their colors in at the same time. A little odd, but we'll see what happens with that. So like I was saying with the watercolor pencils, as I bring my water paints, base paints into the mix, the watercolor pencils are designed to turn into watercolor and disperse with water. So So as you can see, it's starting, it starts to do that and become very watercolory, and that is starting to play a part in the mixing of my flesh tones even. And I personally am fine with that, because I want this to be a melding piece where, yes, the butterflies are over her, but I kind of want them to be a part of her. So all this coloration blend into her flesh and theirs is kind of where I'm going. Other people might find this very disturbing to have these blendings and these lines. The primary color I'm going for are blues. My butterflies are going to have a lot of blues. Her hair is going to not have that much blue, but that's the undertone, and kind of working with these kind of blue casts on her black hair. And so this running of blue watercolor pencil is actually just fine. I'm losing some of my lines, but they're, again, very just there for guidance, but not an exact thing there either. So that's my attempt at the moment, and it's a tedious little process, but I think it's going to be worth it in the end. I built up the flesh undertones to a point, and now I'm laying in the butterflies to see how they overlay. And the trick now is to get this whole semi-sheer areas and solid areas where the butterflies take precedence, and then where Kelly can actually show through. So I'm doing this very gradually, laying in the color really transparent and building up where I want it to be opaque, and really working the blending to show the translucency where I want it to see through. And it's not really distinct exactly of where that's going to be, so I really have to carefully work this out. So this area in particular, I want to actually be able to see that it's a butterfly there, but I want to see her arm coming through as well. And may have to take artistic liberty on these butterflies to create something that doesn't exactly exist, in that these are not transparent butterflies, and may alter the colors and what their wings do for interest. As I see how these solids become, because this one in particular has very dark wings and there's not a lot of description there, and that may work, but I don't want to absolutely create that right away and not be able to go back and lighten things up if that's ending up to be too heavy. Especially with her hair is going to be very dark as well, and that may work to actually have them all blend in as one, but I'm not sure yet. So I'm leaving myself that option. This also makes it much more, makes the brush strokes much more visible, because we're going over so lightly. And for wings, that may work out really well because they've got a lot of little segments in them and almost like brush strokes in their wings. But I don't want it to be too choppy looking either. So as this builds up, we'll see what direction it takes. This is one of those cool areas where the plaster underneath has really expressed itself, and the paint is being received very differently from the rest of the surface. And I love what it's doing. So even though this isn't really part of the design of the butterfly, I'm loving that kind of coming in and out of the painting that's doing. It may have had a little bit more in that little blob. It may have had just a little bit more paint or something. It's given it, it's actually resisting the paint a little bit more than the other plaster. So I think I'm going to leave that, at least for now. Those are those kinds of decisions that you have to make along the way. And I think that those are the kinds of things that happen that take you out of the process a little bit, which is why I like doing a textured underneath, because the painting actually starts creating the way it wants to be a little bit independently of how I might be going at it and trying to control it. It actually said, no, I'm going to do this, and it may be the best way to be. It sounds so goofy hearing an artist talk. But it's, when I was doing pottery, it's that way, where the clay really decides what it wants to do a lot more than me having control over it, which I really felt a lot of freedom in, where it wasn't about me or my abilities. It was kind of what it decided to do. And these underneath textures that I put in give the paintings that sort of life of its own, where it can take a turn this way or that. So this is where I'm really having to hold back to make sure I don't cover up too much of what's already there, and yet still be consistent with the butterfly. So I may just kind of work the outlines more. It's getting cool. I've got all of the butterflies and Kelly in the painting now. They're various degrees of wash and detail, but everything needs more, and they're kind of finalizing everything. See, it's pretty washy up close, and so now I'm kind of just working on the butterflies, adding details, some that just don't exist, because like this butterfly was fairly nondescript in the photograph and very small, so I didn't have a lot of real close-up detail to work with. So after studying many butterfly photos up close and seeing kind of their patterning, or actually lack of patterning, they're pretty random in their little segments in their segments and veins in their wings. So I'm just bringing a little bit of that detail in just to give it some more dimension, because this one in particular was very flat, almost moth-like, and this one is we're gonna keep this whole area sheer, so I'm just adding detail close in, not as much as on this side. But anyway, that's just kind of throwing in some darker areas to bring a little bit more interest and definition to these guys and make it a bit less washy looking. Well, I've gotten a lot of things, everything, established to a great degree, and still working on defining the hand and But what I'm having some issues with is the dark values and things kind of getting lost. And though I didn't want it like, here's a face and then here's this, it's almost morphed itself together even more than I anticipated. So I'm kind of mushing things out a little bit and seeing what that will do. This is the scary part of the procedure, because once you go there, it's hard to come back from it. But if it works, then it will be everything. Because right now, I'm not feeling too satisfied with this being really close to being done and me loving it as much as I've been loving it throughout the process. So somewhere there took a turn, and I need to figure out how to finish it up and not be too much, too little. I just don't know. Okay, the toning down did work. I just took down all the butterflies near her face, just whited over basically, and just made them lighter so they were not fighting with her face, and bumped up the shadowing on her arm and her arm. But this damn hand, oh, it's a gimp. It's a gimp in real life. I mean, give me a break, right? Love you, Kelly, but this hand is driving me batty. So I'm just trying to look at it as shapes, but the shapes are so distorted. So that's it. I'm at the end with the gimp hand, and I think I need to take a break. The gimp hand is solved by my neighbor Saul. Yay! Who said, just cover it up with hair. It's a brilliant idea. So that is what's going on. We're covering it up with hair.
In the film business, you call that editing.
It is. It's definitely editing. Perfect editing. And it's, I mean, it just, I can't get over how much more interest it just
adds to it. Rather than,
totally does. Actually, more than just being a solution to a problem. It is actually a good thing, and making my life feel so much better. I'm gonna finish today without going crazy. I'm in the last moments of this painting and had quite a little revelation. Fixed the hand, still, you know, kind of building up the shadows a little bit, but recalled a lesson from a watercolor teacher in college that used cadmium red, bright red, much like that, to round flesh. So this photograph very much washed out in with light, so there's not a lot of, I mean, there's definitely some reds showing up, and I've been pulling them with sienna, but not bringing in the bright red. And then all of a sudden, to tie that butterfly in and to really round everything, added full out red into the shadows of the arms, around her face, even though they really didn't stand that strongly in the photograph, but it has completely changed everything, and I'm so happy. I forgot to get the camera. I was so excited when I was doing it to show you what I was doing, but that's basically it. Just straight up, well, not straight up, red mixed with some burnt sienna. So it's burnt sienna being a brown red, brickish red, and then like straight up red. Now granted, these glazes that I use, they can go on pretty strong left and be somewhat opaque, never very opaque totally, unless you layer, but the glory of them is that you can add, you know, something this intense color-wise in and really monitor how much of it you want to be on there, and make it extremely sheer by watering it down and then just wiping. So you just get a little residue of that color, and honestly, the residue of it can just change everything. And then you can always, when it dries, it, you know, sets in a little bit, so you can go back and add more, but you can really gradually build up these colors so that you're not really committing to something too intense. And it also makes it much more natural. You're getting you know, a lot of depth in the layers of color that really make it very flesh-like, because you're seeing so many translucencies. I mean, you can see my ratty hand and all the different colors that get cast and all the undertones with the veins and everything. It really, our skin is not at all flat in tone and color. So doing this kind of building up and color after color, layer after layer, throwing in blues, throwing in greens, throwing in yellow, done sheer really is the most optimal way of building up lifelike flesh tones. So then you just get that hint of life, and suddenly her blood is flowing, which has been kind of missing for me this whole time, and I'm totally excited. And I think Kelly will be, and we are all but done. Some little bit, I want to add a little bit, just a smidge more dark when this one dries, and come in and define, I'm also correcting some of the lines. This was too sharp for flesh. Really want to keep your lines more in a curve motion, even in shadowing. Those were my early lines, and then I decided not to really do too thick a paint on here. So just kind of brushing these out to make sure that the lines are not straight, because that's just not how our bodies are. So a couple more little things like that, and then I'm putting my name on this girl and calling her done. And it is complete. Earth Angels from my friend Kelly.